I was so disappointed when I heard that you guys were going to kill Gale. Because Gale is really fun, and he's really
get
fun.
over him. Come on, he's dead. He's gone.
And you know
Let's move on.
I was so excited to see him. Everybody, welcome back to season 4 of Breaking Bad. I know you guys have been waiting a long time. We really appreciate it. We actually went through somewhat of a long hiatus ourselves. We weren't that happy about it, but now we're back. So we've got a really great season for you guys. I hope that you guys really enjoy it. We have enjoyed it. In fact, we are not finished. We are about halfway through editing our season at this point, but we knew that in 3 weeks when we premiere, we knew that you guys would be hot for these podcasts, so we are here to do these podcasts because I think that there would be, a mutiny of our fans if we didn't. So,
who are you?
My name is Kelley Dixon. I think you know by now. But I'm here today with my executive producer, Vince Gilligan.
Hello.
The star of our show, Bryan Cranston.
He's so shy.
One of our producers, co-executive producer, Melissa Bernstein.
Yay.
Hello.
The editor of this episode, Skip Macdonald.
Hi there.
Woohoo!
And our music supervisor, Thomas Golubic.
You want to talk about how so eventually people can watch this and not just listen to it?
Well, why don't you talk about it since you just started? Go for it.
I'm shy.
As an experiment last year, we brought some cameras in and we put it actually on our DVD to record this podcast. Now it's become like a full-blown production with a multicam and everything. So I guess you'll see this if you care to on the DVD. It'll probably be out in, about a year or so?
Yeah, it'll be a while.
So they can't
Good things
watch
come to
this
those who wait.
After they watch the show, it's not available on...
The folks who immediately can partake of this will hear it in audio form. The good news about listening to it early is it'll be the longer version. When we cut it down to the video podcast that we will include on the DVD set for season 4, much like with season 3, it'll be a much shorter, like 5 or 10 minutes each. So you get the full unexpurgated audio version, but then you get a shorter video version, but with the full frontal nudity.
So. And it's DVD content.
And it's just basically to see what we look like because it's like I don't think there's any extra content on it. There's no.
At that point,
content.
after about 30 seconds of the first one, you turn it off.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But the one thing that you do get to see is we are now in our writer's room, so there are all kinds of things on the wall that you might be able to zoom in on and see if you can see some spoilers. Although I think we've cleared the room of spoilers.
But that's our board behind us.
And just to describe it, it's just a big bulletin board with a bunch of 3x5 cards on it that knocks out the story, brick by brick.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you brought this up. I wanted to start in. I always like to talk about the writer's room, and I especially like to let our listeners know about the writer's room because I think a lot of people out there, I know I've said this before, but a lot of people out there really think that in all TV shows, everything is mapped out for 5, 6, 7 years. And I've heard from you now on The X-Files, one of my favorite show. I've heard from you now on this show, one of my favorite shows, that is usually not the case.
Well, you try to, and those are two different shows you mentioned. I mean, in the sense of the X-Files is a little more standalone-ish. But Breaking Bad, it's hard to watch Breaking Bad out of order because it's so very serialized. I say hyper-serialized. So two different shows, but each... You don't always have it all plotted out for months or years on end.
Right, and I mean, I know I might have mentioned this before in one of these podcasts, but I remember working on the pilot with you, and I remember us coming back from lunch one day after eating at Bob's Big Boy, and we were about halfway through working on the pilot. We're working on your director's cut, and I said, Vince, so what's going to happen after the pilot? And the thing that you said to me was, you said, well, I don't think it's going to end well for anybody. But
don't ruin it.
No, but I mean, it's like I thought that for sure you would have had, this whole thing mapped out. I thought that, when you wrote the pilot that you pretty much knew everything that was going to happen. No. And I know that I've asked you this or I've gone over this before on the pilot, on our podcast. And you've said over and over, no, we don't.
It's dangerous to be inflexible in the sense. It's not a matter of being flexible or inflexible. Just most of the time, you're not capable of thinking that far ahead. But if you are, the danger is in becoming perhaps inflexible. For instance, way back when we started, it was my intention to kill off Jesse Pinkman.
Yeah, that was a mistake, but you had your opportunity. Would have been good to
that's another thing I just kind of want to I want to reiterate. I know that we talked about this, I think, in season 2 podcast, but I also want to mention this very, very briefly because it's still out there. When we did season 1, we were stopped by the Writers Guild by the strike that happened, the Writers Guild strike, and then when we came back in season 2 with that, that opening with Tuco and everything like that, and then we killed Tuco off. Everybody, people swore up and down that was really the end of season 1, and you have said over and over again that no, you had a different ending.
Very different.
So that's case in point. That's one of the things that yes, this is how we things change every year, and it's not that you have everything planned out. So with that said, what I'm curious about is the end of season 3, writer's room, when you guys are, not stopping, you guys are finished. I remember you guys had champagne at the end of season 3.
That's
actually
every day.
We always get them drunk.
You had champagne at the end of season 3. You had decided to kill Gale, but did you think about what would happen next at all?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be fun to say, we just turn off the lights and go home and then worry about it next after the hiatus. But no, we always... I love how people think we paint ourselves into corners at the end of every season, and we want it to feel that way. But we come up with these sort of cliffhanger moments and these paint yourself into a corner moments, but we don't stick with them. We don't actually execute them. We don't write them into script form and have you guys shoot them unless we have a pretty good idea of how we're going to get out of it or what's going to happen next.
Okay.
So
you
because
did
that'd be
think
dangerous.
about that.
That'd be a little crazy.
So you did actually go forward with what you were with what was going to happen after you killed Gale.
Now everybody who's listening to this podcast no doubt has seen the episode 1, and now everybody knows that Gale was indeed killed by Jesse. That is what happened, and that was the plan all along. And I have to confess, I was surprised that people were thrown by the end of. I mean, not thrown. I was surprised that there was confusion relating to the last scene of episode 13.
Right, I was surprised at that too.
Well, it was not intentional on my part to confuse anyone. I actually wanted to make it as clear as a bell. And to that end, I directed that episode, and what we did in that last shot is we put a big piece of Lexan in front of the camera to protect our camera operator Andy, and he and his camera dolly Jax, dolly grip Jax, dollied the camera right into so that it was looking right down the barrel of Jesse's gun, and then Aaron fires the blank right into the lens. And I was thinking, to me, that couldn't be any more clear. But the trouble is, in hindsight, and I understand now what confused people, it's a tight enough shot. You don't realize the camera's moving. You do if you watch the background very closely. But what people were confused by is it looks instead perhaps like the camera's not moving, but Jesse is moving. And he's changing his point of aim.
Right.
So, and I think that coupled with the fact that for a lot of folks don't want to see, and me too, me included, don't want to see Jesse be a murderer. Mm-hmm. But,
or see Gale go.
Or see Gale go.
Yeah, I gotta say, I was so disappointed when I heard that you guys were going to kill Gale. Because Gale is really fun, and he's very fun to cut, and he's really
get over him. Come on, he's dead. He's gone. Let's move on.
I was so excited to see him at the beginning of the year party, because maybe he's back. And actually, you have thrown a little bit of a kind of kink in it, because he actually is back.
We open up with him.
Yeah.
People come back all the time.
He's very much alive. You're right.
Yeah, because the storytelling is non-chronological, if that's the right way to word it. Sometimes, who knows? You may see him again this season.
Perhaps.
Yeah. So that's the way it works sometimes on the show.
So that's how we open up. Then it's the brand new lab, and the guys, Gale is talking to Gus about how pure the product is, and how he can't really match it, but he really would like to know who it is that has cooked this absolutely perfect specimen of of meth. But that's so you guys basically you had to clear out that lab that you built last year and bring in and crate all that equipment up and basically
not me personally.
Well,
yeah.
no.
Our wonderful
to
production
do that, right?
designer and Michael Flower, Mark Freeborn, our production designer, Michael Flowers, our wonderful set decorator, and their crews. Yeah, did a good job. Making it look like it was just exactly. Yeah, built a lot of good crates.
And of course, important to have that box cutter.
Yeah,
to establish that.
Let me ask you this too, because Vince, I know that you get pictures of a lot of the choices that these department heads will make. So, how many box cutters were given to you to choose from?
We actually had an artist in Sweden design that box cutter for us.
Really?
At a cost of $118,000.
Really?
Thank you, Sony.
If you'd like to purchase that, you can go online.
No, you're right. It's what you just said. Our great prop master, Mark Hansen, and his crew, they showed me photos of probably 2 or 3 dozen box cutters. And
dozen?
Maybe
wow.
Maybe not that many. Maybe 2 box cutters.
2 boxes, okay.
No, probably somewhere between 2 or 3 dozen and 2. Probably he showed me like 12 or 14 of them, and then I picked one. I like the green. I like the green because it popped against the red.
Let me ask you, because
nice
the story, you can't have a box cutter just show up in a lab out of nowhere.
Right.
So you knew that you would have to establish it somewhere earlier in the scene before the first act.
Yes.
So is that how you got to developing the flashback to become the teaser?
Yes, exactly. We wanted him to kill Victor with a staple gun, but we couldn't figure out how to. No.
We just had a stapler.
We couldn't figure it out story-wise. No, you're right. It's the old. Who was it? Was it? Who was the Russian playwright? Was it Chekhov, or was it that said if you have a gun, if you
Chekhov, you have to use it.
Yeah, and if you establish a gun in Act 1, you need to have it fired by Act 3. It's
Otherwise, you really are misleading the audience.
He was great. But
what's great about is that Chekhov, yes, of course, Captain. But it was germane to the story, so it was planted.
Yeah.
But I don't think the audience really realized that was the plant.
Yeah.
Because it was germane. He has to open up all these boxes, and the focus was on the purity of the meth and that sort of thing. So. Yeah. We see it, we establish it, but then it's like out of our minds.
It's a good thing you bring up, because it's one of those things where you want to hit it just hard enough, but you don't want to hit it too hard.
Right.
And so then the question is, what is just enough and what is too much? And a lot of that comes down, first of all, the wonderful acting and the wonderful directing from Adam Bernstein. He and Michelle MacLaren behind the camera there are 2 go-to directors. And Adam did a great job. And then Skip, you did a great job cutting this episode. And that's one of those things I would imagine that you think about. How long do I hold on this shot? Because he sets it down in the teaser on the box, and then he walks away. How long? How many seconds? How many frames? Which is a frame is 1/24 of a second. Do you hold on this thing?
Yeah, it's a tough choice because you don't want to stay too long, because then it's so obvious what it is. But if you're not there long enough, people may not see it or register it. So it's a fine line where you want to go with it.
And that's really subjective, isn't it? I mean,
yes.
Some people will say it's not long enough. Some people say it's too long.
That's true. But so much of editing, the more I spend time in the editing room with you and with you, Kelley, just so much of it, the fun, I enjoy it more and more when we're not on a real tight deadline. I enjoy it more. But it's like,
always.
I love, it's like I know nothing, Thomas, about composing music or whatever, but I wish I did. But it feels almost like, the rhythms of the editing. It's you want to tell the story visually, you want to use the right shots in the right sequence, but it's also the rhythm of how long do you hold on this cut, how long do you hold on that cut.
Yes.
It's almost like, I would think, almost like composing music in some weird way.
Yeah, I'm not a composer either, but I would imagine it's someplace along that. So you just, you keep the tempo going at the right rate, so you can see what you need to see, but not give things away. and be on the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
I think so much of the magic of Breaking Bad is the fact that everybody is kind of playing it like a waltz. Everyone knows just how much to lean in on things and how far we need to go. And I think part of the joy for us in post-production is that we've already seen the performances. We already have in front of us, the art direction, and we have the editing as well. So we have a real sense of the rhythm of it. So it's just a question of trying to make sure that our game is as elegant and as seamless as everyone else's.
I don't know. I always describe it as I just feel it in my heart. It's what I feel, And I mean, you may have a different rhythm than I do, but it really comes down. Skip and I have talked about this before. It really comes down to what you feel, is the right thing. And
look into your heart.
I do.
No,
sounds corny, but
makes sense.
that's the way I do it.
Your heart
It's black.
or
There's nothing.
Let's get Melissa talking here.
Yeah, I will say.
I don't trust her when she's quiet.
I want to say something about Melissa that maybe a lot of people probably don't know is our co-executive Melissa Bernstein had a baby this fall, and we're all very, very excited.
We're very happy.
We're all very excited.
Our pride and joy, really.
It might be yours. He's a redhead.
Melissa had a little boy.
Suspicious.
Melissa had a little boy, and what's also interesting about it is, for Melissa, this is a family affair. Her husband, Jordan, is one of our camera assistants. And so she trucked it over with the Jordan and little baby to Albuquerque,
and my mom,
and got much help from her mother, to help take care of little baby Lee.
Yeah.
And congratulations, Melissa.
Thank you. And you will see baby Lee as baby Holly's photo double later in the season. Spoiler alert.
Pushing the child into show business. Back off.
What episode's that?
It's episode 4.
4.
I believe is where he is. Where you can start to catch sight of him.
Really? I did 4. I didn't know this. Really? Huh.
So.
Wow.
Well, Lee is very feminine at the time.
No.
He's not really.
He's all boy now, though.
He's all boy. I think you should talk about it because everybody knows the term producer, but what do you actually do as a producer? I think.
Yeah, I've been meaning to ask
interesting. Yeah, what is
I'll get back to you.
Let's take, for instance, the scene in the lab where Victor gets knifed. It's not about just. This prosthetic goes on his neck, and we have a blood pump, and let's cross our fingers, and hopefully that all works, and we can get out. Just give a brief example of the phone calls, the emails, the tests, and everything that goes in that is involved in a stunt like that.
Michelle MacLaren and I produced the show, and with Stuart Lyons, and we have a number of other producers that specialize in various areas. But we start with, the writers started up in July, and as sort of big scenes are coming together, Vince starts to let us know so that we can start turning things over in our minds. And so we are working on these things, essentially as soon as we know about the big scenes. And, this obviously was a major component of the episode, so we did hear about it early. And we started talking about how to execute on their vision, which is always what we do. So we start out, once we're in production, we get the departments together, who at this point have read the script, because luckily the writers had gotten a great head start this season and had written a number of the episodes before we started shooting the show. And we talk about, what needs to get done, what the intention is, what the goals are, and then we divide and conquer, essentially. For the throat slitting portion, we got K&B, Greg Nicotero, who also works on AMC's our sister show, AMC's The Walking Dead, and his partner Howard Berger, who's actually done the Chronicles of Narnia for Mark Johnson. Incredibly talented prosthetic makeup people, and started talking about what Vince and the writers had in mind, what they really wanted it to look like. So we get them started on tests, and how many tests do you think we went through?
We did a lot.
Yeah,
I mean,
because we were trying to
like that, yeah.
Vince's off. Yeah, they shoot them on video and then email them to us, where we take a look, and then Vince and the writers and the producers all weigh in on the fine line between Saw and something that's really, really scary.
Yeah. We wanted this to be, for instance, in this case, we wanted this to be more shocking than gory. I mean, it is bloody,
it's gory,
but it should be more shocking than anything else.
And what should this spray be like, and and how much, and what the color of the blood should look like, and what the color of the blood should look like opposite the floor. So we did a separate test on blood viscosity, like with little pieces of the tile of the floor.
Yeah. This is, by the way, this goes to show how you can't plan out everything in advance, because if I had known we'd have a scene like this in season 4, we would not have had a red floor in the Super Lab. We would not have. We were worried about that. Worried about it showing up, yeah.
And we're working very closely with the director, who is in Burbank. The writers and Vince are in Burbank for the most part. Our director and our team is in Albuquerque. So we're trying to bring everybody together to make sure that all the elements are in place, all the pieces are in place, so that everybody can do, their thing. I mean, for you, Bryan, in that scene, there's a lot of technical dialogue. There was a lot to that scene.
But I master that
You are.
really quickly. You probably couldn't throw me in any regard, because I have a pornographic memory. And I'm
Let me
able
ask
to
you
be...
something, Bryan, though. I mean, at the end of season 3, when Gale was shot, did you know what was coming next? Did you tell Bryan what was coming next?
I'll tell Bryan anything I know when he asks, but sometimes you don't want to know, right?
No, it doesn't really serve me to know too far in advance. Walt is a guy who doesn't know what's going to happen to him the next hour, let alone the next day or week.
Right.
And by reading too far in advance, I became confused, because I would go into a scene in episode 4, let's say, and I've already read 5, 6, and you come in with information in episode 4 that I don't yet know, and oh, wait a minute, I get confused, and that's right, I don't know that yet. So I really didn't find that it served me well. So I don't really want to know. I like the idea of reading the script a week in advance, and then if there are any questions to raise at that point, there's still some time to be able to for clarification and that sort of thing.
Let me ask you this, though. So at the end of season 3, when you basically are being taken hostage by Mike, and you're waiting all summer, or for that long.
I'm just like the fans. I had no idea what was going on.
Okay.
No, truly, I didn't know what was going to happen.
And then, so most of episode 401, you're panicked in the lab. You're stuck in the lab with Jesse, and you're just panicked. I mean, is that
in an anti-Omerically way? That's that sort of fashion. Yes. I hate to throw that out there.
Did you and Aaron talk about, though, what when you finally had read?
To one another.
Oh, really? Okay.
We're not allowed to talk.
It's a contractual thing.
But did you guys talk at all when you found out what was going to happen? What kind of discussion?
No, most of the conversation between the actors when we're reading the script is oh my God, did you read it yet? And then we kind of hover. It's like, I haven't read it yet. Okay. And then Aaron will be hovering over my shoulder as I'm reading it, because he can't wait to see my reaction to certain things. It's that great. So that's how we share that. And we don't want to hear it. We want to read it ourselves. So.
Okay, well, let me ask you, Vince, and also Melissa, if you want to weigh in on this. As far as you're going to kill Victor, what do you tell Victor? I don't know the actor's name. I can't remember. Jeremiah
Bitsui,
right.
Who's a very sweet young man and a very good actor. I think we took him aside a week or two before we shot that, and gave him a heads up, because it seems only right to do that.
The good news with the characters that die on the show is they have glorious deaths. So
I was going to say, they say, "Oh, cool."
And further, no one's ever really dead on Breaking Bad, because people tend to come back.
Yeah.
In out of time flashbacks or. TBD.
Perhaps.
Yes, we'll
Perhaps.
see. But that's a nice silver lining for dying on Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
There's always a possibility of a future.
He did a great job with that death scene too, and as did obviously everyone in the scene, and Giancarlo Esposito, who is the one who kills him, and Adam Bernstein, who directed it. I was not there for the shooting of that. How many takes with all the blood going everywhere?
Well, it's brutal because you have to shoot at 360 degrees, basically, and so there were several takes, and he's in this sticky concoction of, blood, and then we have to clean him up and do it from a different angle, and this. So he was in the goop for many, many hours, and it was
Matching issues too.
Yeah, there are matching issues, so that you have to make sure when you're shooting the coverage that he was grabbed at the same place and the same time, because you don't want to see that. You editors deal with that all the time. You see arms down here, then arms up here, arms down here, arms up here, and it's like, oh God!
There was actually an interesting thing that happened in that scene on set. Is when we did the throat slitting, the blood got all over Giancarlo's face.
Yeah.
And we hadn't anticipated that, and it was one take that happened.
Yeah.
And the question was, are we ready to commit to this? Because it does become an issue in terms of matching and coverage.
From then on, you have to.
Yeah, because then we have to keep the continuity the same throughout, because the blood did change. Sometimes there was more, sometimes there was less. So we had to pick a way to go.
Which take was going to be the hero.
And go with that.
And Vince was in Burbank that day when we shot it. So Adam's like, call him. And so literally we were taking pictures on our phones to email Vince to show him what Giancarlo looked like with the blood streaming down his face. And, and Vince, what you always do is you're like, what's the feeling there? What do you guys think? And, I mean, we all agreed it was badass.
Oh, it's great.
And we committed.
What do you feel in your heart?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
It wasn't. It was something that we didn't see it coming. But
especially Giancarlo Esposito is terrific in the role, and he is in real life, as we know, he is a warm, loving, approachable.
Gregarious.
Metaphysical kind of man who just loves people and engages in people. And when he asks you how you are, it's like, hey, how are you? It's like, really, tell me how you are, And then when he acts as Gus Fring, he just goes dead. His eyes go dark, and he just drops. And it makes it easier for the actors to work opposite him. And when he was doing that scene, and I'm staring at him, and he cuts. And he has no expression, and he's looking directly at me, and he slices his throat, and there was a splatter of blood, some on his glasses, some drying down his face. No expression change. It wasn't like, he didn't flinch. It wasn't. It was just. And that's why I thought that's the hero, because it was just so in command.
Yes.
And Greg Nicotero and Howard Berger and their crew really did a hell of a job with that. That is really shocking, that moment. The wound was in there, and then our wonderful visual effects folks erased the wound up until the moment that it appears. And then there's an awful lot of logistics. Speaking of being a producer, there's so many logistics and so many different people you got to get communicating with each other, and you have to be a go-between. And
stunts, costumes, makeup. Really, and the art department. Everybody has some hand in a big scene like that.
And you got to take care of the baby too.
That's right.
Holy cow!
Oh yeah, she's nursing the baby as she said.
It's the blood
Easy.
It only happened once.
Blood squirts.
But I have to say, my favorite favorite moment in the episode, Adam Bernstein, I just think is a genius. Is Walt is this is going on, and there's a shot of Walt's foot, and he moves it back as the blood is.
That was really cool. I saw that.
And it nearly stopped my heart. Adam is amazing.
I'd love to say that was in the script, but it was not. And that was Adam a great shot. Adam did a hell of a job directing it. Skip did a hell of a job cutting it, and God knows the actors are fantastic. And it's plenty shocking. And I mean, again, that's something we were speaking of earlier. We're on the ratio on the spectrum of shocking versus just plain gory. This is a horrific scene. Obviously, no kids should ever see it. Not until they're old enough, and it's not for everybody. This show, period, and certainly not this episode. But even within that,
that's our disclaimer.
Yeah, but you want it to be we're not trying to make Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We're trying to nothing wrong with that. But that's not what this is. We're just trying to be shocking as hell, and not just plain bloody and gory and nasty.
But the thing about it, what the distinction is that it would be gratuitous if it didn't make story sense, and it did make story sense.
Yeah,
because the reason it definitely does. Because the reason, we know Gus Fring doesn't and cannot tolerate loose ends, and we find out through Victor's conversation with Mike that he was at the scene of the crime. There were witnesses who saw him there.
Yeah.
He stepped inside the room, so at least he could be identified.
Yeah.
He was exposed.
Yeah.
And that's kind of mentioned and established, but it didn't really stick until you think back, and if you go, why would he kill Victor? Why? And you go, oh, no, it does make sense, because he did.
I agree. And furthermore, a message had to be sent. This is what I would like to be doing to you, I think, is what Gus is silently saying. Only I can't, because currently you've checkmated, or whatever the chess term is. You've checked me here, and I'm doing this by proxy, and don't think I'm ever going to forget.
But the fact that he does it himself, which I think is really interesting, because he could have had Mike do it. But he doesn't. He does it himself, and he does it. And I mean, that's really brutal. I mean, it's almost as it's sort of not almost as, but it's kind of like a parallel with what Walt had to do to Crazy 8. It's that's a hard death. I mean, you could take a gun and shoot somebody from far away and not have to deal with it. And he holds him too. He holds him, and
Vince's metaphor is perfect. It's a chess game, and Gus plays chess. He knows that he has several things he has to accomplish here. Lose a loose end, establish for Walt an important thing of what their relationship is going to be from here on out. And Jesse is the only one who really figures that out in many ways, because Jesse is sort of clear in the Denny scene about what their relationship really is, where Walt is still in denial. So in a way, it's back to Gus's long game for season 4, and that this is sort of where he's going to move, and he has made this decision very clearly in his mind, and he's going to follow through with it, as bloody as it is, with as dispassionately and as thoughtfully as he does.
You got to put your employees on notice every now and then. I learned this through, trial and error.
We hate when we see the writers getting killed in front of us.
But everyone else,
it gets us on our game.
That's it. You pick up your game.
And let me mention, Saul now is really, really scared. He's got a new bodyguard.
Yo, Huel.
Oh, great.
Huel.
Yes.
Yeah, you don't know his name yet, do you? I guess.
Spoiler.
You know what?
Spoiler.
No, that's not a spoiler. Everyone should know. Played by the wonderful
Crawford.
The wonderful Lavell Crawford, who's a
Huel. Where did you come up with Huel?
Huel Hauser.
Huel Hauser.
Oh,
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Huel.
They don't remind me of one another so much, but it's just a great name.
And I must say that I was glad to see Francesca back too.
Francesca's great, played
Francesca.
by Tina. Tina's great.
Yeah, she's incredible.
I love that scene. Lavell's a stand-up comic, and also
really?
very talented as an actor, and
has also a little baby.
Yeah.
Did he just have a little baby?
He had a little Lavell.
Oh,
Lavell Jr.?
7 or 8 months, yeah.
Wow.
I don't think there's anything little about Lavell.
And you're gonna see a little more Huel this year. Yeah.
But what I thought was funny was when Saul is crawling around his office looking for bugs, and the columns. I thought the columns were just attached and they just kind of topple over like a floor lamp.
That's a great touch. Those columns are all made out of styrofoam. They really are, and painted to look like
But I just thought I didn't think they moved.
No, I know, and that was a fun moment on the set of where literally the columns get moved all the time for the crew to get in there with the dolly or the lighting or whatnot. And I was, or I think it was, I don't know who it was. It was probably actually Adam.
I think it was.
Watching this stuff get moved around, and Adam said, "Wouldn't it be funny if you did this on camera instead of just because they only weigh probably 30 pounds apiece." Yeah.
So now that Hank is bedridden, and because he got shot, but he's in what do you call it? Therapy. He's in therapy, right? But he's got a new hobby. So how'd you guys come up with this new little hobby?
Honestly, I don't remember. It was just something the sort of the group mind in the writer's room came. Yeah, you got your crystals here.
Something that Walt could actually, step on frequently enough too.
Yeah.
That's part of the joy of it, is that Walt knows just enough about the subject that he's going to take any of the thunder Hank might enjoy off of it a little bit.
Maybe. That could happen.
That's a thought.
Sometimes it's just something just feels right.
Okay.
When you're in the writer's room.
Feel it
and
in your heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
But let me ask this though. When you first started the season, you got all your writers together around this very table, in this very room, and you said, "Okay, how was everybody's summer? And let's sit down and we start." You can't write episode 1 without really kind of having an idea what 13 is.
Yeah.
Can you? I mean, you have to have a general idea of the scope of the year.
Well, first of all, I rarely show interest in my writer's personal
Yeah,
lives.
that's true.
But
Or anyone else's.
Or anyone else, really.
how does this relate to me? Now, that's a good question. We do typically at the start of any season, we sit around for, I think this season, because we knew we had a little more time, we sat around probably for 3 weeks and talked what we called, broad strokes. And we didn't worry too much about the very first episode. It works best when you have time, first of all, and luckily this season we did. The long hiatus, the long wait everybody had, which I do apologize for, although it was not my idea.
It was not.
But making lemonade out of lemons, it worked out pretty well for us writers because it gave us a lot of time to sit back and not worry too much about the clock ticking and think things through. And the best way to do that is to have that time, which we made use of this year, to sit around for 2 or 3 weeks and just say, where do we want to head with this thing? Where should it go? And you want to mix the long range thinking with the organic storytelling, which is a brick by brick thing, where it's like, where's Walter White's head at right this minute that we left off in season 3? Where's his head at right now? What's he afraid of? What's he hoping for? What does Jesse want? What does Skylar want? What does Hank want? Marie, RJ, all these, you go back and forth all day long and you say, where's everybody's head at right now? And you try to build the story brick by brick, and yet some other part of your brain is thinking, where do we want to head with this thing? What are the big moments we want to plot out and work toward? And yet you don't want to work toward them in a sort of a hammering a square peg into a round hole sort of way. You want to get to them organically. You want to get to them and not feel like you're cheating in your storytelling efforts in order to get to a certain big, bravura moment. So but yeah, it was helpful to us. We had about 3 weeks, and we just, before we got too serious about episode 1, we just talked through the broad strokes of the season.
And did you get to some kind of conclusion after the end of 3 weeks to say, okay, we have an idea of where we want to get to at the end of the year?
We had some pretty...
And then now let's make the roadmap.
Yeah, we had some big moments figured out that we abided by for the whole season. Stuff you will see at the end of season 4 was stuff that we initially had thoughts of in the first week or two, and then other stuff we came up with that was dead ends that we didn't wind up doing.
Mm-hmm.
So.
But to digress just for a second, in season 3, it was all about that.
Yeah.
It was from very first episode, the planting of the pink bear.
Season 2, yeah, you're right. You're right.
That was season 2.
Yeah, they do tend to run together. They do tend to run together.
Yeah.
Yes, that was very much that.
Leading all the way up to the mid-air collision.
Yeah.
You had to know where it was going in order to.
Well, even then, we only knew the broad strokes. We knew that the teddy bear in the pool, once we committed to the teddy bear in the pool, we knew it was a result of a plane crash. And we knew that the plane crash, I mean, this is not something we arrived at. This is just drama 101. It's not good storytelling if the plane crash is just some meaningless coincidence. We knew that Walter White had to at least inadvertently be a main contributing cause to that plane crashing. So we knew those major milepost things. Mm-hmm. But then we had to work out all the connective tissue, all the shoe leather of storytelling that got us from point A to point Z there, and point Z being the plane exploding over your head as you were sitting by the pool. But, we didn't know exactly how we were going to get there. We knew it would probably involve Jesse and a girl he was dating. But did the girl kill herself? Did, all the stuff about her... the whole thing about actually Walt watching her, overdose on heroin. That we didn't have that from the beginning. That took a while to get to.
Yeah.
So you have the major mile markers,
Right.
but you don't. It's sort of like akin to having, I want to drive cross country from New York to Los Angeles, and I know where my ultimate destination is. I want to wind up in Santa Monica, looking out at the ocean. But how do I get there from here? There's a lot of different ways you can go.
So then now season 4, obviously we're not going to give away what happens, but
Do
did
we
you
know?
know? Did you know after that 3 weeks
Yeah.
where you wanted season 4 to
I honestly
kinda wrap
can't
up to?
remember, and I see George Mastras out in the hallway waiting to do his podcast. When did we know how we were going to end the season, George?
This season?
Yeah, did we know it early on, or did it come later in the season?
I think we, like you said, we had a general idea how it was going to end, but
Yeah.
pretty early on, we always left it open, I think. I mean, we didn't say we must end it this way.
Hi,
Come on in,
George.
George. Be on mic to say that.
Special guest
Put your
star.
pants on first.
George Masters.
I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I mean,
One of our
I
writers.
can't remember. Of course, this is all academic for the folks watching because they don't know how the whole thing's going to end. But suffice it to say that there is an ending to the season.
Absolutely.
And
My question was just
and
when,
I can't remember.
there is an
I
ending.
can't remember when we figured it out.
just to get the overall of how it's structured, how you guys structure your time.
I will say I like to know as much as possible for as long as possible, so that every storytelling decision we can make will aid and benefit that ultimate. Will help us get to where we need to go.
Where you're still, yeah.
Having said that, though, if you nail it down too much too soon, and then you're a little rigid about we can't. This interesting side track has come up, but we should stay away from that because we got to stay on track and stay on course, and then you can do yourself a disservice story-wise.
Yeah, my recollection is probably going to be different for every writer. Is we sort of had signposts of big events we wanted to have happen, but we didn't know exactly where we were going to leave the character of Walter White at the end. We kind of left that a little bit open. And it kind of went back and forth whether he was in a,
But you guys were ready to move into breaking episode 1 by the end of those 3 weeks. So that was a good.
Honestly, yes and no. I mean, I'll take as much time farting around as but I mean, seriously, I mean, writers are typically excellent procrastinators, and but then at a certain point you look up and you say, it seems like we have all the time in the world, but we really don't. It finally dawns on you, you better start cracking. So we started working on the first episode about 3 weeks in.
and writing decisions are generally made by the impending deadline because you waver all the way up until the very end of it. So.
Speaking of
Like your
impending
final.
deadlines, I think we're going to have to wrap up soon. And Thomas has got to talk about that last song.
Yeah, I was gonna get to that. I mean, unfortunately, we do have to wrap this up. But I wanted to talk about the Denny's restaurant that you guys had.
Oh, yeah,
clear.
Denny's.
And also, I want to talk about the Kenny Rogers shirts, which we might have to put off to the next podcast. 402, we'll talk about your shopping forays. I promise.
I bought. It's a quick story. I bought 2 Kenny Rogers shirts at a Walmart outside of Taos, New Mexico. And because I thought, at some point I want Jesse wearing these. I didn't think it'd be Walt and Jesse both wearing them, but I bought like 3 or 4 of them in different sizes because they were cheap and because I loved them.
Okay.
And then I was in the checkout line, and the lady behind me was like, "Oh, where'd you get them Kenny Rogers shirts?" They're over in the Husky Boy section.
It's like a Pulp Fiction nod, too, a little bit, right?
Pulp Fiction.
She said, "He's a fine singer." And I said, "Yeah, he is indeed."
But okay, so
He's a damn handsome man, too.
so talk about the Denny's restaurant. I love the fact that it's a kind of a shout out to episode 209, where he's like, "Hey, there's got to be a Denny's around here."
It is
someplace."
kind of. God bless Denny's for being cool with us shooting in one of their fine restaurants. This one on Central Avenue.
When you say a shooting in one of their fine restaurants, we want to
Not a
clarify
shooting.
that.
Yes, a filming.
A filming.
And I have to say, that was the very first day of production on season 4,
Yeah.
and I was the only day I was there of production because then I had to get back to writing. But I was there that day all day with you guys, and then you guys went up the street to my condo and shot in Walt's condo,
Yeah.
which is my actual condo, Holly and my condo. But that Denny's, they cooked me. They had the real wait staff and the real cook on duty that day.
Yeah.
Even though the restaurant was closed down for filming, and the cook cooked me a moons over my hammy sandwich that was the best I've ever had.
The best moons over my hammy you've ever had.
It was delicious.
And we used a real life Denny's waitress.
Yeah, real life. Denny's waitress was our waitress.
And she did a good job.
She did great.
She did great.
So let's get a last little comment about the music then from Thomas as far as.
Well, we
Wait, I got more to say about the sandwich.
Okay.
go back.
All right, I'll let it go. Go ahead.
See now I'm screwed. Well, we had a big ending on this thing, and sometimes for our episodes we'll use score sometimes to kind of close it out, and sometimes we'll put a song in. Dave Porter does beautiful score, so a lot of times his touch is really what the scene wants, and sometimes we'll try out other things. I think we both tried on this one, and. Early on, we tried a few different ideas out, and there was an album that had just come out, actually, about a week before. I got an early advance of it by an artist named Alex Ebert. He was the sort of lead guy, or is the lead guy, in a group called Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros. And he was also in a band called I'm a Robot, and he had his first solo record, and there was a track called Truth that we just really loved, and we just thought, this kind of captures the Breaking Bad feeling. It has sort of like a Western quality to it, and it's got a whistle that's in there.
Sort of a reggae thing, too.
Reggae. It kind of has all these weird genre things that we kind of touch on. It's so hard to describe the music in this show, but it's kind of all the different components, and it just had a sort of a weird sauntering quality. And, Walt is walking away. We have this really great shot where the camera's following him as he's walking, and he's kind of pulling his pants up. His pants don't fit really well, and he's got the Kenny Rogers
touch
suit.
That was Mr. Cranston's idea, by the way.
It's kind of like, he's once again the cowboy that's sort of walking away in the distance, but not quite as groovy as you might hope. And then we end up going,
Aztec.
yeah, and then we get over to our crime scene, and we had to find a way to kind of get to that. And the big point, which is punching home that the lab notes have been found.
Oh, that's right. That's a little adjunct to that. I forgot.
That looks like trouble brewing.
Yeah.
I think everything will be okay.
And Anna added a great line about acknowledging your ensemble in that last scene between Walt and Skylar.
We chose to leave the little.
I love
that was a great touch. Kathleen
The
DeTore,
tag
our costume
was
designer, came up
hilarious.
with
the thing on there.
Yeah,
The sticker.
Yeah.
Size label, because it's like they obviously in a hurry. They didn't check the sizes of things, or and especially Walt didn't. His mind is elsewhere, so that was fun.
See,
and then she peels it off.
Yeah, she peels it off. She did a couple ad-lib lines. I can't actually remember if one of them made it in or not, but they were funny.
About Kenny Rogers.
Yeah.
That was funny.
That's funny.
Yeah.
And see, in my
As
mind,
she's peeling it off, I think she's Kenny Rogers.
See, in
And
my
one time
mind, Mike went and bought. Yeah. In my mind, Mike went and bought it for you guys instead of you guys buying it, because I think even in a hurry, you wouldn't want to wear the same thing. Jesse
Yeah, I
did.
was just wondering. That sounds.
That's what I think.
More to me too. Yeah, who just buys?
Because you would have had to go in your bloody clothes to the Target or the Walmart or whatever
Right.
to buy the clothes.
That's
It'd be nice to see Mike in line with the two Kenny Rogers shirts,
Yeah.
like checking
Yeah.
out Kenny Rogers.
I like the red Converse.
Webisode.
That's my favorite.
yeah.
But hopefully, folks are, it's a big, and David Costabile, who plays Gale, such a wonderful actor, and it's a big moment. And now Jesse is,
We're gonna miss him.
we're going to miss Dave. Oh, well, you may see him again. No
Perhaps.
one dies forever.
Perhaps.
In a sense.
That's a
on,
great
Breaking Bad.
title for a James Bond movie.
Nobody dies
Nobody
forever.
dies forever.
I think it messes with the stakes, though.
Well, I guess we should wrap it up.
Nobody dies forever. Nobody dies forever.
I guess we should wrap it up, huh?
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. Melissa,
Did I talk about the Denny's and the sandwich?
You talked about it. didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll probably give you free moons over my hammy now.
I
And-
prefer Viva la French toast.
That's very good.
Yes.
Thank
They
you.
got Baconalia going on now.
Oh yes.
Bacon alien?
Baconalia. It's all about bacon.
It's gonna be a
It's
national
Bacchanalia.
holiday soon, I think.
Can't be Denny's.
You can't beat
So,
bacon.
thank you everybody for listening once again. This
See you next
was
episode.
episode number 401. What is the title of this one?
Box cutter.
Box
This
Cutter.
one's Box Cutter.
Written by Vince Gilligan, directed by Adam Bernstein. Thank you, Melissa, Brian, Vincent, Skip, and Thomas.
Thank
Thank you, Kelley.
Thank you, Kelley.
We'll
Thank
see
you, guys.
everybody. Hey, everybody, go break bad.